Welcome to Minutes by Minute. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
And we're here to talk about what goes on in the village, the township, and the local government that makes regulations, laws that affect you out there.
Just remember, these are the people that you elected, whether you live in the village of Oxford, the village of Leonard, Addison Township, or Oxford Township, and the committees and the commissions that they appoint. And whether you attend those meetings or not, it doesn't make any difference. They're going to make those decisions anyhow. And we're going to fill you in on what happened.
Absolutely. Excuse me. And if you're going to be frustrated, make sure you go to these meetings like he says and be frustrated at the meetings first.
Voice
right?
your opinion or forever hold your peace, as they say.
Right. Now, we do have a disclaimer to talk about, don't we?
A disclaimer?
Yeah.
Everything we say is absolutely more or less true.
75%, 50%, 100%? Maybe not.
Certainly not fabricated.
Well, it's up to you folks out there to figure out which part is which. Okay. But we're going to discuss these meetings, and the first meeting we're going to talk about is the Oxford Village Council meeting. Village Council.
You're late of that, aren't you?
Yes, I'm very late. I'm out of it now. Yes, I'm not part of it. Although
Okay.
we all are part of it because we live in the village. If you live in the village. You don't.
I don't live in the village.
You live somewhere. Where do you live?
God's country.
Yeah,
Brandon.
I've heard that before.
Yes. Well,
But I kind of shrugged that off. We know God's country is right
kinda
here in
took you
Oxford,
aback,
folks.
didn't it?
Yeah, it does. Anyway, Sue Basarded, she's the president of the village council. Does a great job, with controlling the meeting also. Brian Cloutier serves on that board, as does Maureen Helmuth.
Although I hear the last one went for 2 hours and many minutes.
It did. And we're going to cut this down short, and we're going to find some of the humor in that meeting.
And a few salient points.
We might do that, yes. So anyway, the meeting started, and first thing that came up was, is there anyone that wants to talk on non-agenda items in the public? And this guy said, "Hey, I do. Let me come up here."
And they went, uh-oh.
Yeah. Then they looked like they had eyes and roadkill. Anyhow, the guy goes up to the microphone. His name is Mike Bard, and he's from Westbury Condos. And I don't know if you recall, but last winter they were talking about joining that particular condominium complex association road that travels through there with the adjacent association. So that would be easier to maintain, for winter and that kind of thing. And so
Where is that located?
that's a good question. It's down off Burdick Street,
Oh,
next to Burdick Street, I believe. And so it makes sense to do that because otherwise they got snow piled up and whatever, and they can't get through there a lot of times. And both sides think that might be a good opportunity to change, so that the residents can have more
I think
convenience.
they're kind of at the bottom of the hill there, aren't they?
They are at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah.
Everything goes downhill.
And water does.
It does, yes.
I've noticed that a lot lately.
You notice that a lot? You have a lot of water out there, huh?
Well, on Oakwood Road where I go
In
home.
God's country?
Yeah. You might as well get a couple of oars yesterday.
Okay. Oh, well, God's got a flood coming.
Yeah, boy.
Is there a fellow on the corner, his name is Noah? Just want you to know, God's country gets hit first. Anyhow, so this gentleman said that they took a vote of their association and pretty much has approval on it, and just wanted the council to know, what the progress was. So it'll probably end up in the planning commission before they're done.
Okay.
And then go back for, and the planning commission can make final approval there. Anyway, they said, okay,
Which is their job.
right? They said, thank you. Mike, sit down.
Tag, you're it.
Right. So then they said, well, what's the next item on the agenda? Well, we got to pay our bills. Oh, okay. How much are the bills? And anyway, they said it was $313,832.40
Since the last meeting.
since the last meeting. So they said, okay, that sounds good. We got to pay our bills, otherwise
More than
we're
our
gonna-
yearly budget.
Yeah, it is. It's quite a bit. But anyway, so they said, let's pay these, get them done. So they said, all those in favor? Well, we can't do that. We have to take a roll call because it's money. Okay. So they took a roll call, and the only person that wasn't there was Rose Bema, and she's absent. And everybody else voted, yeah, let's pay the bills. So they were done. And
They had a quorum.
they had a quorum, yes. And the next subject that came up, you're never going to guess what this one is, but I'll tell you anyway.
Well, thanks.
The Ridge Lawn
Have a lot
Cemetery.
of dead air at that point.
Good. Anyway, the Ridge Lawn Cemetery agreement. In other words, if you recall, the Ridge Lawn Cemetery wants an access from their cemetery and into the cemetery.
And even though they're adjacent to the Oxford Township Cemetery, they are a commercial cemetery.
They are, but the village has this piece of property that's just sitting there, you know, and every time that cemetery people go by it, they say, hey, we could use that. So anyway, so they negotiated, their attorney did, with our attorney, Bob Davis, with an agreement. And the agreement is a 10-year agreement to lease that piece of property so that they could have an ingress and an egress going in
That's the one off Dayton
to the
Street.
cemetery. That's one off Dayton. Very well done. You still remember that program probably, or that show.
Oh, I remember everything.
All right, you'll
It's
be
a
tested
curse.
on that later.
It's a curse.
Make a note of it. Okay. Anyhow, so they said, well, how much, you know, will we be receiving for this property, you know, as far as the agreement? And they said, and Councilmember Helmuth, she said, how about $10,000 a month? I don't think that'll work.
But it's a good bargaining point.
It's a good bargaining point. We'll start there and work down. And so Bob Davis says, well, they're kind of thinking more like $1 a year because there's a lot of maintenance that they're going to have to perform in the agreement in order to keep this road open. It's a 16-foot wide road that's going to lead in.
They're thinking of paying symbolic rent.
Yes. That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
And on the north side of the cemetery is where this road will come in off Dayton. And it'll be paved, and the point was that there will also be a gate there, and it will be locked.
How long will that entrance be?
I think it runs
Will it connect to
150 feet or so back.
Will it connect actually to the pathways that are in the cemetery already?
It will by the time it's done. There will be you're talking about a roadway.
Yeah.
Yeah, connected to the existing roadways.
Okay.
Yeah, they will be. But there will be a lock on the gate. Fire department, police will have access to the lock. Let me see, what else is going to happen there? Oh, they're going to also
But
put
there's a
in...
residence on either side of that, isn't there?
There is. So therefore, we're going to talk about trees being planted, lawn area, you know, to be put in, shrubberies, that kind of thing.
Guard tower.
Maybe,
No.
maybe a guard tower. I don't know, but I don't think many people are leaving the cemetery in that late at night. They don't really need a guard tower. I don't think.
The risk is small, but you never know.
You just don't know. Long overdue. They might do that. You heard it coming from him first. Okay, I didn't say it. Okay. So anyway, they said, well, probably be a token charge for it. And they said, okay, where do we go from here? They said, well, the engineers have certain conditions that have to be met. And so we'll have to put that into the agreement. The agreement is just a basic agreement at this point. So it will change. And so we will put additional things in. For example, are there going to be excuse me, there going to be time limits as to when they ingress and egress this property?
You know what this sounds like?
What?
A handoff to the Planning Commission.
You know what? That's exactly where this is going to end, and we'll tell you more when we come back right after this.
Hi everybody, I'm Terry Stiles.
Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Service, and I'm the producer of Our Community Access. Terry and I started our show 8 years ago to bring our community into your living rooms.
Our Community Access is a show born from the rich diversity of our community, and we want to brag about it and the people creating that diversity.
Over the year, we've been from fox hunts to beekeeping and right in your own backyard.
We welcome new businesses, chamber fashion, senior hobbies, class reunions, and much, much more.
We've covered all our celebrations from Leonard Strawberry Festival to our premier Lone Ranger Parade.
But there's still more avenues that we plan on going on.
So watch our Community Access at 9:30 and 5:30 every day, and you have a great, great week.
Welcome back to Minutes by Minute. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
And we're here talking about the Oxford Village Council and what's going on there. And we're talking about the Ridge Lawn Cemetery. And a number of items were covered, excuse me, in a cemetery agreement that's going to be made supposedly with them. And the question came up, well, how long is this agreement going to be? It's 10 years is what they're suggesting.
years.
So a 10-year program. And
With provision for a refresh?
with lots of provisions. For example, if there's going to be signage, it's got to run through, as you pointed out earlier, Planning Commission, that kind of thing. And the cemetery people said that there are actually not a lot of heavy traffic going to go through there. There's maybe 3 times a year. The veterans have a thing that they do where they require access, for a larger truck to get through there.
Okay.
And things like that. But there's only like about 3 big deals that they have to deal with. 3 big deals they have to deal with? Yeah, I guess that's what it is. Okay. Basardi said that she's concerned with one thing. As President Basardi, she said when this traffic leaves the cemetery, there needs to not only be signage, but also people directing the traffic as to where they can go, so they don't wander around nilly.
Will they leave the traffic? Will they leave the cemetery through the same place they came in, or go out on Burdick?
They may leave a different. They may go out the south end, come in the north side or the south side, and go out the north side.
Right.
So anyway, Susan Basardi, the president of the council, said that this needs to be addressed. That she would expect that there will actually be a body there at each location directing traffic.
Well, I suspect that there'll always be issues before this thing is put to rest.
Oh, yeah.
So to speak.
And actually, that did come up. They said, well, this is just a pending agreement. Those things the council can stipulate. But the next move, according to Bob Davis, was to take this to the Planning Commission. And like Sue Basardi, she said, well, we can make recommendations to this, and then they can either act on it or not. That's their choice. But she said that was her concern, or one of them. Also,
But the door was opened.
the door was open. The other thing that they're still contending with is the Oxford Area Cable Communications Commission interlocal agreement.
What now? I thought that was a done
It
deal.
still has not been addressed yet in terms of signatures and agreement.
Are there issues?
Well, there was up until this point. Now it's all resolved. Everybody's happy with it. So it's signed. It's done.
Oh, well then.
it
You
takes
led me
care of
down a
that.
primrose path there.
I did. Now the next item they talked about was truck ordinance. Now remember, they have an ordinance that restricts gravel trucks from going down Burdick Street.
Yes.
And
Is it because of their GVW or because of the Jake brake?
well, actually, it's because of the noise that the trucks make going up and down the hill.
They hit a bump.
either
And
filled-
they hit a bump, and those trailers just rattle like crazy.
They do, but there's a new road there, and some people contend that the road was put in for the trucks, and that wasn't the case at all. One gentleman, he stood up and he said, I counted traffic, and there were 70 cars. He said, average type cars traveling up and down this road versus one truck, in this area. But the truck that did travel did keep with the code or the ordinance, so it wasn't over 40,000 pounds. So it was able to travel the road. But he said that is.
How do they ascertain that?
Oh, the guy who watched it. He
You
watched the
can tell
traffic.
how big. You can tell how heavy a truck is.
Well, you can pretty much surmise. Now, here's the thing, though. Actually, you can have a pickup truck that could have a blade on the front, a salting unit on the back, and full of salt that could weigh that much.
Is the noise created by the trailers as they bounce, or is the noise created by the truck and its running gear itself?
Yes. Both. Yeah, both. Okay. So anyway, there are several people, they addressed this topic. And Karen Floss was the first one that stood up. And she lives on Ashley Way. And she's lived there since the year 2000. And she says, why is this coming up as an issue again? This was settled in an ordinance. So anyway, she was kind of dismayed as to why it's being brought up again, and that the residents have to now address this all over again.
Why was it brought up again?
Well, we're going to discuss that too in just a moment here.
Was I jumping the gun?
You're jumping the gun.
Darn
The
it.
gun is over there, so keep it over there.
All right.
Okay, lack of concern by the village, she said, and its residents, by bringing this ordinance up and attempting to change this ordinance again. And 3, she says, will this keep coming up? If it's approved or changed or whatever is going to be done, is it going to come up again? And Sue Bassard, the president, she said, it could be. You always have to be vigilant. She said, because you have new board members, and the old board members that were the previous elected may have come in with an ordinance that the second board doesn't like, new members, and they then take it upon themselves to change it.
But you're safe for a year.
You're safe for a year. Councilperson Keenis, he said he wanted to question the lady and say, well, how long have you lived in this area? And she said, well, since 2000. And were there trucks running up and down the street then? And she said, well, there was, but not to the volume that there is now. And they actually got into kind of a shouting match. And where Sue Bassardi actually used her little gavel and beat it. And she said, that those are issues that we don't need to discuss here, in that way, in such a manner that she said it very politely and moved the subject over to, excuse me, Brian Cloutier, who's also a council member, and he says, well, I'll address that, but he said it was not the intention, at least my intention, he says, and several other people on this board, to do away with this ordinance. It was merely to make a change. So that smaller vehicles, that are using this area would not fall under the ordinance and get a ticket. That they're regular, business type vehicles that come here day in and day out. And the only concern was the 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. when these vehicles could arrive. Well, Joe Young, who's a village manager, he says, hey, over here. He said, it wouldn't matter. He said, if you eliminate that or not, he said, it actually is in the provision the way it's set up right now. You don't need to make any changes to it at all. He said, right now, because of the way it's written, those gravel trucks cannot travel up and down Burdick Street. He said the other vehicles are allowed, like a garbage truck, they're allowed, to come in this area, and it's stipulated in the ordinance.
They're defined as service vehicles.
Service vehicles, exactly, in the ordinance, and that's the way it's related.
I see.
So Brian Cloutier is, right, in that he's saying that all the thought is to modify a small section of the ordinance. And then he said some people on this board have decided they want to eliminate it and start over from scratch and redo it. And he said that is not the intention of what we came up with originally.
At some point, it becomes non-productive.
Very non-productive, and he gets a little frustrated at that as well. He said also there's a cost involved with those big trucks traveling up and down, traveling up and down. He said that road is going to get torn up. He said, and the village cannot afford to spend that kind of money again.
Was the road designed to accept those loads?
It was built to accept the traffic loads that are there, which is very heavy in terms of local traffic.
But in terms of the GVW of those vehicles?
Yeah. It can handle it, because that's the way it was designed to do it,
Okay.
but only for a short period of time. You run those large trucks up and down that road constantly, and it's going to tear it up. The other roads beyond
Check
them-
M24.
Yeah, right, exactly. Take a look at it. So, anyway, that's what we have right now, and we'll be coming up shortly with a little more information as to what's going on in Addison Township. This is Minutes by Minute. We'll be back.
Everywhere you turn in Oxford is a new opportunity for fun. From the sandy beaches of Stony Lake and Scrifter to the many different sporting events and other recreational activities held at Seymour Lake Park. For those who like long walks, you can find yourself exploring the Pollyant Trail throughout Oxford's more scenic areas. And if it's seclusion you like, look no farther than Oakwood Lake Park. So bring your family or friends out to see one of our beautiful parks today.
Welcome back to Minutes by Minute. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
And we're talking about the Oxford Village Council. And there's just one more thing before we go on to Addison. Chuck Snyder stepped forward and he said, I am interested in purchasing 98 Glaspie Street.
Is that the Vets Hall?
Nope.
No, that's not the Vets Hall.
No,
That's what?
That's next to the water tower.
98 Glaspie. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
remember that property?
Yeah,
Anyway, the deal that they had fell
A big
through.
black or dark building.
Yeah, it is. Anyhow, he said he put together a whole proposition in which he was offering about $250,000 for the property. He said that he would have to spend $50,000 in order to level the old building and so forth. So he did spend a great deal of time explaining exactly what he was going to do, and he's going to put condos in, a number of condos facing the lake, and he is putting together a plan which will be presented to the Planning Commission. But before he does that, he wants approval for the sale of the property, to buy the property. So that's the first step,
Which the village owns.
which the village owns. And if he can get that approval,
Does the village own it or the DDA?
No, the village owns it,
Okay.
actually.
Okay.
Through, I don't know, I don't think the DDA purchased that property originally. They may have, but the village, I'm sure, paid for it because they ran out of money, if you recall. That's a whole different subject.
That's why they ran out of money. No.
We talked about that before, remember? Okay. Anyway, so that's an interesting situation. Chuck Snyder, an entrepreneur, has stepped forward to see what he can do to at least get a piece of property that's going to be on the tax rolls and so forth. So we'll have to see where that goes. That's going to be in the Planning Commission.
You can put it on the tax rolls. I'm for it.
Yep. Okay, Addison Township. A couple of quick things. They had Township Board Trustees meeting on March 2nd, and a 6-to-1 vote, they approved the plan for the new building, the renovation that they're doing.
So when does that silver spade hit the ground?
It's going to hit the ground in April or May. So that's pretty much the schedule that they're looking at. The exterior of the building was approved and everything in terms of the materials they're going to use. The budget for the building is between 1.7 million, 1.8. Now, do keep in mind that allocation was made back when of 2.3 million. So that would be the maximum amount that they would spend. So they're under that, and that's because over in Addison, they fight tooth and nail for every penny over there. I give Bruce Pearson and that group over there a lot of kudos on that one.
That's
because
true.
They're doing great.
But still, keep in mind that no government project has ever overrun its budget.
Where did you get that from? Is that one of those?
Just wanted to catch your reaction to that one.
I see. Okay. Yeah, right. The only trustee that voted against it was Linda Garrick, and that's because she didn't like the building style. But anyway,
A little late for that one.
Yeah, the water had left the bridge a long time ago. So that being said, looks like you fellas or you people out there are going to have a new building, and as he says, digging down about April or May. Enbridge also stepped forward and they donated $15,000. Remember that handicap pier that we had talked about for
Yes,
George Lake?
yes.
They donated $15,000 to get that
Very
pier
generous
put in.
of them.
Yep. So great, and I think Bruce Pearson went after that one too. And negotiated it. So again, good job, Bruce.
Well, Enbridge has done a ton of work in this area, so.
Yes. There was an interesting article in the Leader, which I read the other day, Leader newspaper, Oxford Leader, and Sue Bellairs, who is a trustee with the Oxford Township, had under viewpoints in the Leader, her concern for the scores from the Bridge magazine and how they rated Oxford schools. And she says in this article, it's past making excuses. The new board needs to actually look at this and try to resolve why, the Oxford schools are not rated as high as other schools. As a matter of fact, I think they're rated about 400, at 400 level or somewhere in that area.
Where do they place relative to schools in our area? Are they,
well, Lake Orion is much lower than 400, on their survey. So
Not saying that that's an excuse or
no.
anything, but just
But Bel Airs has a very good point. We see all kinds of positive literature and things coming out and how great these kids are doing and everything, but yet when you look at some of these surveys, they don't depict them as doing that well. And maybe the school board needs to look at it and see, the truth of the matter. And if there are issues, they need to take steps to, make it move in the right direction. So
look for results.
Yes, and I thought, again, I think good input from Sue Ballers. I think it's things that maybe other residents have been thinking for some time. And if there are things that need to be fixed, let's fix them. That's what she's saying, right?
Okay.
One more thing I want to mention. They're going to have a Wizard of Oz production at the Oxford High School. It's going to be a great production.
And they'll pass laws.
Yeah.
No.
No. It's going to be a wizard. But anyhow, somebody stole their bike, by the way,
What?
for the show.
Really?
Yeah, they did. So the police have written it up, and they're going to have a new bicycle, though. So
That shows
Dorothy
you
will
what
be able to
happens when
ride
you
the
mess
bike.
with wizards.
Yeah, right. By the way, that is going to be, let me see, March 18th and 21st, and again on March 26th and 28th. And you can get box office tickets Monday through Thursday from 4 to
Just-
7 p.m.
Just buy them from the Flying Monkeys.
Yes, flying monkeys will be, those will be your monkeys, I'm sure. All right, what's coming up, David?
On 3/17 at 7 o'clock, the Village of Oxford Planning Commission meets. And on 3/18, we got 3 meetings. At 3 o'clock, the Pollyant Trail is meeting at the Orion Township offices, floating meeting. At 6:30, the Oxford Board of Education meets at the district offices. And at 7 o'clock, the Addison Township Fire Administrative Board meets. On 3/19, at 4:30, North Oakland Transportation Authority, known as NOTA, will meet at their offices, which are now, by the way, in Lake Orion. And on 3/23, our parent organization, the OACCC, the Oxford Area Cable Communications Commission, will be meeting at 4 o'clock. And we've changed the whole format now because of the close down of the Vets Hall. We are now going to be meeting, this time anyhow, at the Addison Township offices.
So if you go to the Vets Hall, you went to the wrong place.
You could be sitting at a locked door for a long time.
Yes, you could be. Interesting. There is an election coming up, too, for Addison Township for the NOTA, and that's on May 5th. Also, there's a gasoline.
This is third time in the barrel for that, isn't it?
There's a tax by the state of Michigan that they're requesting for sales tax from 6 to 7%. Also,
I would
gonna be on
advise
the ballot.
anyone to take a look at the actual proposal. It's not just a simple proposal.
It's all kinds of
There's a lot of bells and whistles on that one, folks.
all kinds of, as you would say, tentacles running off from it. So, but when you look at the worst of the situation is what, the schools will get more money out of it, which, if they need the money, give them the money. The other thing is potholes will be fixed.
I need
That would be
more
a
money,
good
but
thing.
do I get it?
Well, you have water out there. You're not going to need it for roads anyway. You're gonna need your money to get a boat or whatever
Only
you
if I
need.
could sell that stuff.
Right, I understand that. What else is going on out there, by the way?
Where?
Just water?
No, well, it's the snow melt and it accumulates in low areas. And I know yesterday there was a small lake in the middle of the road that people were really slowing down for.
Now, you finally got natural gas out there, didn't you, for your
We got
furnace?
natural gas. We're running on gas.
Oh my gosh, you're really modern.
The
Next
propane,
thing you know, they'll make you put in the sidewalk.
Yeah. Now we have to figure out what to do with that big hole where the propane pig was.
Oh, really? Is there a hole there?
Not a hole, but an empty space. And we had created a little series of plants around it so it would cover it up.
Oh.
Now they're covering up nothing.
Couldn't put a small pool in there or something, for ducks? Or
All you got to do is dig a hole and you got a pool in our place.
Okay, well, folks, we're pulling this. I'm Elgin Nichols,
And I'm Dave Kenny.
and we'll catch you next time on Minutes by Minute.
See you then.
I think that's a good one.